She took the job nobody wanted at a cruel mountain man's ranch. What she found changed everything. No one in the valley could remember a time when Blackridge Ranch had not been feared. It sat high above the timberline where the mountains folded into one another like clenched fists, a place where the wind howled even on calm days and shadows lingered long after sunset. Travelers spoke of it as if it were alive, watching, waiting. Some said the land itself was cursed. Others blamed the man who owned it. Elias Crow. The cruel mountain man. His name passed from mouth to mouth like a warning rather than an introduction, usually followed by a shake of the head and a muttered prayer that no one would ever need to go there. Ranch hands came down from the mountain thin, shaken, and silent, if they came down at all. And yet, when desperation sharpens hunger and fear dulls pride, even legends lose their power. That was how Clara Whitfield found herself standing at the hiring office on a gray morning, her coat too light for the cold, her boots worn thin at the soles, her future hanging by a single question asked in a tired voice: "Is the job at Blackridge still open?" The clerk behind the desk did not answer immediately. He studied her the way men do when they think someone doesn't understand what they're asking for. He saw her small frame, her soft hands, the exhaustion in her eyes that came from too many closed doors. He exhaled slowly, as if already regretting what he was about to say. "You don't want that job," he told her. "Nobody wants that job." Clara nodded once. "That's why it's still open," she replied. He leaned back in his chair, rubbing his jaw. He warned her then, not gently, not cruelly, but honestly. He told her about the hours that never ended, the cold that settled into the bones and never left, the man who owned the ranch and the way he spoke to people like they were tools that could be replaced. He told her how no one stayed, how some quit after a single night, how others left without collecting pay because money wasn't worth what it cost to earn it up there. When he finished, Clara did not look frightened. She looked relieved. "I don't need easy," she said quietly. "I need work." Something in her voice made the clerk stop trying to save her. He wrote down the directions and slid them across the desk. "Then may God walk with you," he said. Clara picked up the paper, thanked him, and walked back out into the cold without looking back. The road to Blackridge climbed sharply, winding through forests that grew darker and denser the higher she went. The sky pressed low and heavy, and the wind cut through her coat like a blade. Each step felt like a test, as though the mountain itself were deciding whether she deserved to reach the top. By the time the ranch came into view, her legs trembled with exhaustion, and her breath burned in her chest. The building stood stark against the rock and snow, functional, weather-beaten, and utterly joyless. No smoke curled from the chimney. No animals moved in the yard. The silence was so complete it rang in her ears. Clara adjusted the strap of her bag and walked forward anyway. She did not knock. The door opened before she reached it. Elias Crow stood there, filling the doorway like a wall. He was taller than she expected, broader, his presence heavy in a way that had nothing to do with size alone. His beard was dark and untrimmed, his eyes sharp and unreadable, his face carved by years of cold wind and harder solitude. He looked her over once, not lingering, not curious. "You're late," he said. Clara met his gaze without flinching. "I'm early," she replied. "Most people don't come at all." For a moment, something flickered across his face, surprise, perhaps, or irritation, but it disappeared just as quickly. He stepped aside. "You want the job, you work," he said. "No complaints. No excuses. If you can't keep up, you leave." Clara nodded. "That's fair," she said. And just like that, she crossed the threshold into a life no one else wanted. The work began before dawn the next morning and did not slow until darkness swallowed the mountain. Clara learned quickly that Blackridge did not forgive weakness. She hauled water from a half-frozen well, her fingers numb and aching. She shoveled stalls, repaired broken fences, fed animals that eyed her with suspicion, and learned the land by pain and repetition. Elias gave orders in short, clipped sentences. He did not ask if she was tired. He did not thank her when she finished a task. When she made mistakes, he corrected them without cruelty but without kindness either. By the end of the first week, her hands were blistered and cracked, her muscles screamed every time she moved, and sleep came heavy and dreamless the moment her head hit the pillow. And yet, she stayed. Every morning, she rose before the sun. Every evening, she finished what she started. The ranch tested her, and she answered with persistence rather than pride. What unsettled her most was not the labor or the cold. It was the loneliness. Black Ridge felt like a place holding its breath, waiting for something that never came. The house was clean but empty of warmth. A woman's shawl hung on a hook by the door, faded but carefully kept. A small wooden horse sat on a shelf, its edges smoothed by hands that had once held it often. Elias never mentioned them, but Clara noticed how his eyes lingered on those things when he thought no one was looking. At night, after supper eaten mostly in silence, he sat on the porch and stared out at the mountains as if they were judges passing sentence. Clara sometimes wondered if he hated the ranch or if it was the only thing that kept him alive. She had seen men like him before, men who survived by building walls so thick they forgot there was anything worth protecting inside. The others in the valley watched from afar, waiting for the moment Clara would come back down the mountain like all the rest. Weeks passed. Then months. She did not leave. She adapted. She learned Elias's routines, the way he preferred things done, the unspoken rules of Black Ridge. She spoke only when necessary, worked harder than required, and never asked for sympathy. Slowly, imperceptibly, the ranch began to change. Not in ways that could be measured or praised, but in small, human ways. Meals became warmer, more thoughtful. The house smelled less like survival and more like living. On evenings when the wind screamed and the snow piled high, Clara repaired an old piano she found in the corner of the sitting room, coaxing sound from keys that hadn't been touched in years. She played softly, not to impress, not to perform, but to fill the silence with something gentler. Elias never commented on it, but he stopped leaving the room when she played. The first real crack in his armor came during a storm that trapped them inside for 2 days. The wind battered the house, and the world beyond the windows vanished beneath white fury. They sat by the fire, the air heavy with unspoken thoughts. Clara broke the silence without raising her voice. "You don't scare me," she said. Elias looked at her sharply. "You should be," he replied. She shook her head. "No," she said. "You're just lonely." The words hung between them, fragile and dangerous. For a long moment, Elias said nothing. Then, quietly, he spoke the truth he had buried beneath years of anger. "Everyone leaves." Clara met his eyes, steady and unafraid. "I haven't," she said. Something shifted then, not healed, not resolved, but acknowledged. The mountain did not feel quite as cold after that night. As winter tightened its grip, Clara realized the stories told in the valley were wrong. Elias was not cruel for the sake of cruelty. He was a man who had lost everything that made softness safe. Every harsh word was a shield. Every rigid rule was a way to keep grief from finding him again. And without meaning to, Clara had become part of the ranch, part of the silence he trusted. She did not demand kindness. She earned trust through consistency, through presence, through staying when leaving would have been easier. And though neither of them named it, something had begun that could not be undone. High on a mountain no one wanted, in a place everyone feared, 2 broken lives were slowly learning how to exist in the same space without pain. If this story is pulling you in, if you feel the quiet strength of staying when it's easier to run, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Stories like this exist to remind us that even the coldest places can still be healed.